reason why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. Senator John McCain, who I don't agree with on many foreign policy issues, describes our electoral system as nothing less than, quote, a massive influence peddling scheme where both parties conspire to sell the country to the highest bidder. And he's right. When I mention John McCain across the state, whether it's a red county or a blue county or libertarians or Greens or populists, I get the same reaction. They all know that the elephant in the living room is that our country is being sold to the highest bidder. When you hear this debate tonight, you will understand why we don't have health care for all, because our candidates are taking money from the insurance industry. Why do we pay 3 times as much as for pharmaceuticals as other countries around the world for the same drugs? Because of the pharmaceutical industry. Why are we in Iraq? Because of the defense industry. Because of the Israeli lobby. Because of the oil and gas industry. That's why we're in Iraq. Why do we not pay something? Why do we not face up to global warming? Why don't we face up to global warming despite the urgency of the need? Because of the auto industry, because of the oil industry, because of the developers who love to see us drive our cars in our sprawl. That's what we love. Don't face up to climate change. We need to face up to that urgency. This is a very important election year, folks. This is a very important opportunity for Maryland to really show the country that we are not going to allow the special interests to dominate politics any longer. This is the opportunity. I want you to think of yourselves as historical actors, as people who are important, as people who can make a difference to the direction our country goes. You have a role to play. I want you to play that role with great seriousness. I want you to think of yourself, it's sometimes hard in the present to look and not be afraid of the two parties, because the two parties play games with us. You know, when my sons were growing up, if they were doing something I didn't want them to do, it's called C. I would say, don't do C, guys, do A or B. And they thought they had a choice. But there was no real choice in A or B, because I had taken what they wanted to do, which was C, off the table. That's what the two parties do to us. They manipulate us. They manipulate us with fear. They manipulate us with fear. The Democrats say if the Republicans get elected, we will have a fascist country. The Republicans say if the Democrats get elected, all the gays will get married. Marriage will be destroyed. It's all nonsense. It's all exaggerated. So, to make this easier for people to understand and to grasp, particularly in this room with the Underground Railroad history, let's go back to 1850, when the issue of the day was slavery. And the two parties were the Democrats, who were the plantation owners, who refused to address slavery because they were profiting from slavery. The other party was the Whigs. The Whigs were the northern industrialists who also profited from slavery because slavery was as valuable as every business in the country combined. So everybody was profiting. The two parties were both profiting, and slavery was off the table. Then there were abolition parties. Abolition parties who said, no, it's morally wrong, it's ethically wrong. We cannot have a country with slaves in this country. They said that and they stood up. They stood up and they said, no more, we're going to make this issue an issue in our electoral politics. They got 5% of the vote. They got 7% of the vote. They elected congressmen. They elected senators. They elected governors. And finally, in 1860, they evolved into the Republican Party, and slavery was near its end. Those people who voted for those anti-slavery votes at 5%, they are the heroes of our history. They stood up to the two parties and said, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to vote for the lesser evil because it's still legal. We're not going to do it. That is where we are today. We are today a country dominated by big business corporations, controlling our government through financing of the campaigns of people from both political parties. We've got to say, no more corporate control of government. We want a government of the people, not of the special interests. And that's what we have to work for, a government of the people. And that's what I'm running for. So when you go to vote, I want you to start to think about that. That you are a historical actor. And you know, the American people are waking up to this realization. Because if you know, a poll a year ago asked the question, do you feel represented by your federal elected official? Only 17% of Americans said yes. 83% of Americans felt unrepresented by their federal elected official. For the first time in our history, both political parties have higher negative ratings than positive ratings. For the first time in our history, as the Republican Party drops in popularity, the Democratic Party is not getting more popular. We're seeing the public saying enough of this corruption, enough of this special interests. It's time for a government of the people, I hope that you soon will understand that the only way that we can get what we want is to vote for what we want. If we continue to vote based on fear and manipulation, we will be feared, we will be afraid, we will be manipulated. It's time for us to stand up and say no. I hope that on November 7th, after you've seen a series of debates that we'll be having over the next 5 weeks, hope you will see that your best interest, your best representative, will be my campaign and my candidacy. I look for your vote, I look for your support. Thank you all very much for coming.